Welcome to the Columbus Metropolitan Club. I'm Carol Looper. I'm a member of CMC's Board of Trustees. I am currently the membership chair, so this is just a little subliminal. Join. CMC welcomes everyone. CMC is pleased to present today's forum, Music as a Driver of Culture and Economic Vitality. It's sponsored by the Greater Columbus Arts Council, OSU Public Media, Puffin Foundation West, and WCMH NBC4. This forum is also the Carol A. McGuire Legacy Forum, celebrating arts and culture. Sponsors and Carol, a hand. And of course, each of these sponsors are represented by many friends and associates. Now, please help me welcome WOSU Public Media Classical 101 Program Director, Cheryl Dring. She'll introduce our forum.
Thank you, Carol. WOSU Public Media is honored to support the mission of CMC as you convene weekly public conversations on the important issues of our lives, of our times. Music and the performing arts are great drivers of cultural and economic vitality. You don't have to look any further than Nashville, Austin, New Orleans, great cities. Related careers span the arts, hospitality, and entertainment industries. Columbus has a rich history of the performing arts. For more than a century, art and artists from Columbus have played across the world's stages. At home, an array of arenas, historic theaters, and intimate neighborhood lounges thrive as a constant hum of music pulses through our city. How can we cultivate and grow this cultural treasure and economic engine? Well, we have some people to address that. Our experts today: CEO of Promo West Productions, Scott Steinecker. Bruce Garfield, who is the Executive Director of the Columbus Music Commission. Vocalist and actor Amber Nicole with Mojo Flow Music Productions. Gotta love having fans. And the host of WCBE's weekly Jazz Sunday program, the director of the Ohio Department of Transportation, and our host, Dr. Jack Marchbanks. Jack, I'll hand it over to you now.
Thank you. Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. I stand before you today as a lifelong advocate of music, particularly Ohio music and Ohio musicians. From the 6th grade, when I discovered from my hometown of Dayton that the McCoys were led by this guy from Salina, Ohio, I was really proud that Rick Derringer notched a top 10, actually top 25 hit. So from the 6th grade until maybe a decade ago, I was sitting in a bar with downtown Mike Brown. He's in bars a lot. I'm not. But he said, hey, Jack, there's this group called 21 Pilots. They're going to be somebody. So that is the enthusiasm and genuine affection I have for Ohio music. And I am so thankful and happy to be here to moderate this expert panel. Along with Scott, I'm probably even more versed in Columbus music history than even Scott, because I came here 80 years ago. Not 80, but I came here for 40 years ago, and one of the first people I met was Bill Moss. Bill Moss founded Capsule Records, and Capsule Records gave Columbus its first R&B hit by the Four Mints, Row Your Boat. And prior to that, of course, we had great jazz musicians going back to Rusty Bryant, and with his hit, Night Train, and of course, our own Nancy Wilson, born in Chillicothe, but came to Columbus and was, escorted out of Columbus by Cannonball Adderley, because people know that this town is a great town when it comes to music. We've had so many great musicians come from this city, and unfortunately, we haven't had the music scene that's commensurate with artists such as Nancy Wilson, Rahsaan Roland Kirk, Rusty Bryant, our own Bobby Floyd, who's wanted to be here today. I invited him. He's on tour because he has to tour to make money, to make him as a full-time musician. So with that preface, I wanted to thank the panel, and I wanted to talk to Scott. Scott, tell us something about Columbus's rich music history. In addition to what I just said.
Well, I go back 37 years. Bought the Newport Music Hall when I was 23 out of Ohio State, and turned it into the Newport Music Hall. It's now the longest continually running rock club in history. Yeah. It was. It opened in 1969 with Ted Nugent as the Agora Theater. It was in Agora for 14 years, and now it's been the Newport Music Hall for 36. So it's been ongoing for 50 years. So all the old, the 80s guys, I know all the 80s guys, and then built the Players Amphitheater in 1994. And what else? Started 21 Pilots out in the basement. We have a club called The Basement. And we develop acts. We start them at the basement, we go to the A&R bar, we go to the Newport Music Hall, we go to Express Live, we go out back, and 21 Pilots took that whole trek. What else? The Express, we built the Express building. So we've been part of the live music history for 36 years. It's a great market. It's actually the #1 live market in Ohio. So something to be proud of.
Thank you for that.
Yes.
Amber, as a musician here in this scene, what can you share in regards to what you know about your antecedents, the people on whose shoulders you stand as a Columbus musician?
Well, you actually nailed everything that I was going to say about Rusty Bryant and Nancy Wilson. I've been over, I live in the Lincoln district, so I'm very familiar with the Lincoln Theater and all that history. And so I'm very aware of the talent and the musical talent especially that we have here in Columbus and that the shoulders that I stand on. As far as the most recent history, I've been going out to see the Hoodoo Soul Band most Sundays, and also about Conspiracy Band, Rodney Sutton's here. They've been around for 30 years, and I think that that's something to be noted and something to be really excited about, just to see that you can create a career here, grow that career here, and you can stay, but you're right, you do need to be touring in order to actually make your money and your living. But I'm very well aware, and I'm very proud to be from here, especially with my music career. Mojo Flow started with just 7 or 8 of us, and in a very small area, and we've just grown, and that's been because of the support of this city and because of people like you and WOSU and 90.5 and all of that, and 102.5, and just all of the different establishments that we have here to grow as musicians.
Thank you. One thing that I've noticed about those other cities that are not on the West Coast or the East Coast is that there was a record label that helped spawn that music scene, be it Motown, as Smokey Robinson's 80th birthday anniversary, be it Motown or Memphis, or even TK in Miami with Casey and the Sunshine Band and other regional markets. Here in Columbus, we've had, of course, Cap Soul, we've had, of course, Anyway Records, and On the Fly. How is it different these days? Do you need a record label? What do you need to succeed these days, Bruce? What does the industry look like? Do we need someone to schlep around with records like Bill Moss did back in the early 70s, trying to push his artists? How does Columbus make its scene more known nationally?
Well, first of all, thank you, Jack. First of all, I just want to give an overview to the industry as it is today. It was in a terrible decline a decade ago, and that's been reversed. Now, the figures are, it's a $62 billion business at present, and Goldman Sachs has recently issued a report estimating by the end of this decade, if not sooner, it'll be worth $130 billion. And I think that we need to make sure we have a slice of that pie. The business has changed because of the dynamic and advent of digital platforms. It used to be that physical product was number one, then some time ago followed by downloads, and now it's been reversed. Streaming provides 92% of all income in music. 5% is downloads, and struggling at 1% is physical product. You don't need to have a record label to start your career. And they come into play when you need the major marketing and promotional muscle. But as you probably are aware of, Billie Eilish, who was just on the Academy Awards and won 5 Grammy Awards, started as a young teenager putting music up on Spotify.
She's still a teenager.
Yes, she is, right. So she was asked if Van Halen had any influence. She wasn't even, they didn't release their last record before she was born. So, but you can propagate your music by social media today. And this is a great opportunity also when you have a city like Columbus where there's such a fertile landscape with venues, and you have Scott and other younger promoters, younger mean smaller promoters, sorry, Scott, and to propagate it. The one thing I'd like to say is that we need to change the dynamic where we make the music and someone other than us makes the money.
Very good. Scott, as someone who promotes live music and that live scene, how does that help generate energy and economic vitality in the music scene, insofar as you know?
Well, it keeps we do 550 shows a year in Columbus, Ohio, and those are all national artists. So it keeps what music industry we do have vibrant and alive.
Are there opportunities for local artists to get on some of these bills when you have these national acts?
Well, it's not like it used to be. We used to be able to put a local artist on every show. Now they're usually touring with an opening act, but we do put some on. But the way that we do it now is we develop them through what I talked about earlier. You start them out in the basement. Like there's a band now called Cousin Simple or Camp. Is everybody familiar with Camp out of Upper Arlington?
Yeah.
Those, we started them out in the basement, A&R Bar, Newport. So that's how we try and, like we did with McGuffey Lane back in the old days, and The Toll, and RC Mob, and the Trillionaires. I saw Gabor. The Trillionaires. We start them out and we develop them. So the music scene is very, very vibrant, but we need either a management firm or we need a record label based in Columbus, Ohio would really help take it to the next level.
Amber, what do you have to add to this conversation on how do we make this vibrant scene something that creates, economic benefit for the community and particularly for the artists?
Well, right now, we don't have an infrastructure all the way to forward our careers here. Like Scott was saying, there is no management, there's no publicity here, there's no record label. And that's not to say that you can't do what we do without having those infrastructures in place, but that would make it a lot easier, and it would make us a lot more effective in what we're doing. If we did have that type of infrastructure here, if we had that business here, there's a lot of you look at our concerts, and we've looked at as a flyover state, as a flyover city, and that's just, it's not the people's fault, because like you were saying earlier, we do have a very vibrant live music scene. We do have a lot of support here in our people. We just don't have that infrastructure in place to help create or to help incubate people's careers or musicians' careers from the beginning, and to continue to mentor and foster that type of career growth that we're looking for.
Bruce, building on what Amber just shared with us, it sounds like there's an opportunity for entrepreneurship here.
There is. Our pillars of our organization are education, which means education as far as knowing what the music business is, how to propagate your career, performance opportunities, and of course, workforce and economic development. people have said to me, Bruce, you know, so many people in the music business, can't you get someone to come here and invest and put a company together? As a businessman, I said, well, who's going to make a capital investment to open up a satellite office or an office where they might make some money? There's small hope. And I've been tossing around with our board that I think we need to form the first nonprofit, next generation music company in the country, whereby we could take our young musicians and nurture their careers. We could provide the opportunity for them to have money to record, make that video, hire that promotion person, and create jobs for this company and an income, because we would build a dynamic where the artist would receive a lion's share, which no company in America would be able to equal that equation. And we would then be self-sustaining because we'd have a proprietary interest. And I think that we could also be the beacon on the hill. We're never going to compete with Nashville. In fact, Nashville's priced musicians out of the marketplace, as Austin has also. But we're in a position, if we put our cards on the table the right way, where we should and could attract people from all over, not only the state, but the region. If we had an infrastructure, a record label, maybe John Legend would be known for growing up and being born in Springfield, but his career could have started here. 21 Pilots would not be signed to a label in New York, or have a manager that lives in Southern California, or an agency that's in LA and New York. So we are trying to also nurture and create a different dynamic, for instance, with recording studios, where a studio might charge an artist, let's say $3,000, $5,000 to make an album. I always say to the studio owners, well, you're a taxi cab, because this artist takes the ride with you. They arrive at the destination, you charge them what's on the meter, and that's it. If you would take the time to identify talent that has the potential to become a meaningful entity in the marketplace, forego the charge of an hour or an hourly rate. Invest in them by providing the time for them and have a proprietary interest. Where's my magic wand? Now you're a production company. You're just not a person selling studio time. So basically, we need to build an infrastructure, and we build it here. That will accelerate our growth, because all these other cities are far ahead of us in the game.
Thanks, Bruce. Amber, we have this great stock of artists here. What would you say to them in terms of how do you turn your love of music into a business? There's an opportunity for artists to advance their careers, but a lot of them are not business savvy. I know that the King Arts Complex and the Lincoln Theater have had incubator series for artists. What more can we do to make sure that the artists have that business sense so they know how to make the best of their talents in terms of economic return?
So how more we can educate artists? Well, I would first off suggest attending the Music Business Mondays that Columbus Music Commission throws. The next one is coming up on Monday, February 24th, and those are forums and where you can learn a lot about the industry from a lot of different industry experts. Myself, my personal background, I like to read a lot, and so I ended up doing a lot of reading. My parents were very, very adamant about me understanding the music business and the fact that it's a business. And so what I would say to any artist is that understand that this is a business. Your group is a business. Mojo Flow is not just a band, it is Mojo Flow Music Productions. We have other bands under that wing. We also acquire talent, and we produce shows. So there are different arms of that business. It's not just a band. And so I would tell any artist to, you think of yourself as an artist first, of course, but understand that you're a business, and that means understanding the laws, that means understanding contracts, that means understanding numbers, and all of the boring stuff that's associated with that. And how do you learn? educate yourself, do a lot of research. I spend a lot of time reading. I spend a lot of time on the internet looking at different articles about how to be in this business. And as we know about the music industry, it's constantly changing. So you're constantly learning. And I would just say, stay up on your research and stay constantly learning about this industry because it's just always changing.
Thank you for that. Scott?
Can I
Yes.
talk to that a little bit? Amber nailed it. Every act that makes it, there's someone behind that band, someone in that band that has the drive, has the motivation, learns the business. I mean, whether it's Mick Jagger, the Stones, or Bono of U2, or Brad Cerconi of the Toll, or Amber. It's somebody, or maybe a manager, or maybe a Stephanie Lorenz, a mom behind Cousin Simple. There's somebody who understands the game, that it's a business. And a lot of these bands want to play and become rock stars. Amber nailed it. It's a business. You have to be like Jerry Seinfeld and make yourself a business. I mean, you got to learn it. And I just wanted to expound on it.
Scott, and I'd like to continue with you. You, in your position as a promoter and someone who started so many, really great venues, every city that has made it, like with Seattle with grunge, sort of the alt-country kind of vibe you had coming out of Nashville recently, had a brand or some way they could characterize their city. How would you characterize Columbus? What is its musical identity? It's very eclectic, from what I can tell. We have jazz, we have new country with people like Lydia Lovelace, people who come out of here. How would you characterize our Columbus?
It's very
music?
eclectic. Every city, you had the grunge out of Seattle because you had several bands come out of that market. You've had Athens, Georgia because of their feel. Columbus has 21 Pilots, OAR, so are we kind of a poppy rock? But we're more than that. We're very eclectic. I think Bruce nailed it. We need to start something locally here in Columbus that can take those artists, because I've talked to Chris Woltman, he used to work for me. He's the manager of 21 Pilots. He now lives in northern San Diego. For somebody like that to come back to Columbus, Ohio, they're not going to do that. They live where they live. But something needs to be started here locally so we can take artists like Amber and help groom them. We can do it in our venues, but we also need to be doing it in the recording side of things.
Very good. Bruce?
Just going back, touching on that, I always think of, the other handles that have been given to other cities, but I always think of us as the heartland of American music. And when you say heartland, I'm not talking about where we're physically located. I'm talking about heartland as in heart, as in quality. Maybe that won't stick, but I'm kind of moving in that direction. Austin, Texas, whose local music and music tourism economy was $1.8 billion last year, grew around the local music scene. And what really started to accelerate it was the Chamber of Commerce and the city government taking notice. And the government backed the Music Commission in 1988. And at that point, they were searching for how do we bag ourselves? What's our moniker? And they self-proclaimed themselves as the live music capital of the world. Once they built that moniker, then they went about fulfilling it. And it's the completion backwards principle. You work backwards to take care of it. And the government provided legitimacy. They propagated as a strong entity and a contributor to both the cultural and economic development. South by Southwest was started there. I went to the first one, it was 700 people. Now, at the last one, it was 7,000 people. And that registration is $1,360 a person. You can't find a hotel room, less than $350 a night. So it gives you some insight to what is going on there. But again, it goes back to acknowledgement and true belief and propagation by your government. Your government, it spills over to your business community, and then it involves everything from education to music therapy to taking young people, aspirationals, Because today, when I was a little boy, we grew up, we wanted to be sailors or soldiers, and your mother said be a doctor or a dentist. Then kids started to say, well, I want to be a baseball player. Oh, I want to be a football player. I want to be a basketball player. Today, these kids grow up knowing that there's a business of music. They can produce music at home, they can be artists, they can be writers, they can be producers, they can be managers, they can be publicists, they can be videographers, art directors, all of the above. And I think that's another thing. We need to reach out into our communities and embrace these kids and give them something to carry them on to a legitimate career path.
Very good. Scott, what can government do more? As someone who's a businessman, I know the private sector has to be involved, but what can government do to incentivize that kind of scene that Bruce just shared with us that spawned in Austin?
I think they've started it. Bruce has done an unbelievable job with the Columbus Commission, Music Commission. And I think that's the start right there. They're funding it through, Experience Columbus, I believe?
Just
A little bit.
multiplicity of sponsors.
And
The city
sponsors.
of Columbus is a big supporter.
Yeah.
Greater Columbus Arts Council, Scott Steinecker, AEP, and a lot of other people have bought into what we're doing and have recognized it.
But I think that's a step in the right direction. It didn't have real direction until I think, Bruce, you came along. And
I may be shot for agreeing with that.
Yeah.
It was a well-intended organization, basically co-founded by Tom Krause of Donato's.
Yep.
But when you have a bunch of really businessmen or artists like Amber, everyone's preoccupied with their own lives, and you don't get very far as volunteers. So they came up with a brilliant idea of hiring their first executive director. So they've vetted 50 people for the job, and after 5 months, they finally decided I was their guy.
But so they're doing the right things, I think. I think the city government is stepping in,
So we're
stepping
moving
up.
in the right direction.
Yeah, I believe so.
What can we do individually, as people who love music? People are here because they have at least a curiosity with music. Everybody loves music. How can we make this great city in which we live the next Austin or just the first Columbus? How about that? The first Columbus. So what can we do to support? I volunteer. I'm sure all of you around here do something to support music in the schools, support a scholarship fund. What can we do as individuals? What help do you need, Bruce? What help do you need, Amber, as we start to close?
Oh, all right. Well, I'm going to go with the very obvious answer, which is support local musicians. Go to shows. Go to all sorts of places. I just thought, go to Natalie's in Grandview, go to the Big Room Bar, go check out shows. There's a lot of really good music, and take earplugs. I carry earplugs with me in every purse. It gets loud. I know that people don't want to go to live music because it's loud, and I say take earplugs because then it won't be so loud and you can enjoy yourself. And I know that I personally take earplugs with me all the time. I've got some in my purse right now, just in case it ever gets too loud, and I can make sure that I enjoy myself. But I say that with all the love in my heart. Not to take earplugs to block anything out. Take earplugs so that your excuse can't be, well, it's too loud. Then you can go stand right in front of the speakers and really get that experience. But go to shows, invest in the incubation programs that we do have. I work with the Wave. We amplify voices, and they need funds, they need volunteers, they need people that are interested in helping that out. And that's really investing in our future, because we work with the kids in the schools. And so that's really creating a culture here in the city where it's maybe not necessarily just musicians, but you end up having music appreciators, arts appreciators, people who love the arts, and they can end up supporting that later on, and a reason to stay here, But just come out and really, that'll be where I come from with it. Support local, if that means going to shows or investing in different programs, do that. Streaming music, we always appreciate a stream. Listen to 90.5 WCBE, listen to 102.5, CD 102.5. Listen to those stations, give them your listenership, and we can just show up in those ways there and really make an impact.
Advertise there.
Yes.
I want to just give it one more example.
Yes. And we're going to have to wrap up here soon.
A couple of summers ago, Robert Shenton and I were sitting eating tacos at Food Truck Thursdays at the Commons. We looked at each other and said, how come there's no music here? It's a beautiful summer day. I went to Nick Stefanik, who programs the Commons, and I brought that up to him. And Downtown Development financed this past summer 12 of the 20 Food Truck Thursdays with live entertainment. This year, they're financing all 20. And Greater Columbus Arts Council, thank them. And the Greater Columbus Arts Council does matching funds with entities all over the city, and they have stepped up the game, focusing on diversity, focusing on showing our best, and even the airport's now going to have Radio Columbus, which will be celebrities, whether it's 21 Pilots or John Legend, who's visiting, doing voiceover.
Or Aaron Deal, our own new jazz artist.
Cool. You need you to defend that to me. Welcoming people to Columbus and telling them why Columbus is so great.
So you're hearing it. Go out and support local musicians. Advertise in those venues and on those media outlets that support local musicians. We're proud to support local music on WCBE. Scott.
Yeah.
Last word.
Well, every artist that's ever made it has created a buzz. They create a buzz in their market, and then they get signed by either a manager, excuse me, or a label person. So it's all about creating a buzz. So I think the people in this room, if you talk about what great venues we have in town, what great artists we have in town, if you talk that Columbus is a great music city, it'll create a buzz. And I think that's how we, all in this room can help it. It is a great music city, actually.
It is a great music city. As someone who's been around a lot of different music cities, I am always impressed with how well people can sing here in Columbus. You have some great singers. In fact, when you see a mediocre singer, you say, okay, but they're not Columbus. Just like when people hear an organist play, they say, well, they're not Bobby Floyd. So we are spoiled by that, actually. We're spoiled by that. We expect to hear great music all the time. We have to value it. We have to value it if we're going to create this scene, create that economic energy that we need for this great city. Cleveland makes $127 million a year off the Rock Hall. Not many live acts local there, but if we can create a scene like this here in Central Ohio, I kid you not, it will be so much of a boost to the quality of life here in Central Ohio. All right. We're going to move to audience questions in just a few minutes. There's a microphone over there. There's Andy pointing out the microphone. Don't be shy, but let me get to one final thought. And this is something that we got over, we asked for questions over the internet. And one of the questions was, what are schools and educational entities doing to promote music, creating that pipeline for the next musicians? What do you know of the programs here that are going on, if any of you happen to know anything about the education system and how they're supporting arts in the schools? Bruce?
Well, the city school district themselves is really focused on that. In fact, last year, we, the Music Commission, in conjunction with WOSU Classical 101 and NBC4 and CD 1025, did an instrument drive, and we collected over 300 instruments which went to the city schools. This year, we're going to knock the ball out of the park. There's after-school programs like Guitars Not Guns, WAVE, We Amplify Voices, which used to be Dick and Jane. And I'm sure, Transit Arts, there are lots of great after-school programs, and I think we just need more of those.
Understood. Any additional remarks, Amber Nicole?
That was absolutely it. So, WAVE, Transit Arts, and I think that for beyond that, that's where the infrastructure comes in place for what do we do beyond grade school,
It is a valuable pipeline. We need to not make it just STEM, we need to make it STEAM, with arts being involved. All right, I think we have a line queued up.
Good afternoon. Thank you for your panel and discussion.
I have to give you a disclaimer first. It is CMC's tradition to take audience questions. Please state your name and ask questions. Please avoid comments And remember, questions end with a question mark. And let's get started. And one additional thing, I'm up here in my incarnation as a music lover. Any questions that involve highways or songs with titles, any songs with titles that contain highways by AC/DC, Tom Cochrane, or Bob Dylan will not be accepted. So, with that stated, go ahead.
That's a good disclaimer. My question is, I guess, for everyone up there. Where do you see the epicenter right now in Columbus for an entertainment district or a music district? Or where is the scene right now? Where's it going? Is there a specific location, a region?
Scott, you want to take a lead on that one?
Well, I think there's quite a few, because you have the campus area, you have Short North, you have the Arena District, you have Brewery District. There isn't any one dominant, I don't believe so.
No, I agree. I completely agree. That's what I was going to say, is there's no one place. There are pockets everywhere that have very vibrant scenes. And so that's, I think, that is one of our strengths here in Columbus, is that we've got a lot of different, there's no just one neighborhood you have to go to access the music scene here.
There has been talk about possibly creating an entertainment, when I say entertainment, I don't mean just music, it could be cuisine, but an entertainment density zone in Franklinton. Hopefully so it doesn't turn into a sea of mid-rise apartments.
And we also have theater, which creates a lot of music. I see Stacy Board there from Shadowbox. And I think there are opportunities to value music and theater as well. Yes.
Hi, I'm Brian Williams. I'm usually out a couple nights a week to see some shows, and yes, I take earplugs with me too, which leads to my question. There seem to be a lot of people who feel a lot of the music is too loud. Should we work with club owners and bands to maybe do acoustic sets, or just to tone things down a little bit? Because I'm not sure all of the audience really likes that. I'd like to get some of your thoughts on that.
Absolutely. Well, I would say, you know, with whichever bands that you find yourself really enjoying, ask them. Everybody would be more than happy to perform an acoustic set, perform in a different type of environment, but definitely talking with venues, definitely speaking with, well, not speaking with bands, but speaking with the venues so that they can establish a sound kind of ordinance, if you will, I think would be a good thing.
You can do that on the local level, but on the national touring level, you're not going to be able to dictate volume.
Yeah.
You won't get a band probably to turn down at a club, but you should seek out venues like Natalie's, like the Songs at the Center tapings. There are lots of venues like that that specialize in, let's say, more sedate or acoustic sounds that will appeal to someone who's not 22 years old.
Yes, sir.
My name is Steve Maurer. I'm here as a part of Columbus heritage, as far as music is concerned. I'm a member of the Columbus Mentor Corps, which is probably the oldest continuously performing, singing arts organization in Central Ohio and maybe the state. What you're all about takes nothing from us. We're proud to be part of the heritage, but the future really looks bright. I commend everything that's going on with you four in trying to make it even better. We practice Tuesdays at 8 o'clock.
Okay.
Always open for more singers. I can't miss the commercial.
Okay.
And yeah, we're doing
All right.
fine.
Is there a question, sir?
I knew you were going to get me on that. I'll do penance later.
Hi, I'm Michael Vanderdes. I want to talk for just half a second about jazz in Columbus, and then I have a question. I've promoted a lot of jazz over the last 25 years or so, and Columbus has an incredible jazz community The musicians work with the greatest musicians in the world and travel all over the world, touring with them and supporting them. But jazz in Columbus is not really well supported. I have found over these years of doing concerts and bringing people in and stuff like that, that Columbus is pretty conservative, and it's really hard to promote anything that's not really mainstream. Can you address, you know, where a city goes when all it's going to be is mainstream? Because there's dozens and dozens of mainstream communities, but there's only a few New York, Chicagos, and Columbus needs to be in the New York, Chicago, New Orleans, Los Angeles range, not the Indianapolis range. So can you address conservatism in Columbus?
All right, Scott?
Well, over the years, I mean, we do 2, 3, 4 big jazz shows a year. We don't do a ton of them. You know, Earl Clue, and it goes, you know, Chick Corea, and we've done them all over the years, but we don't do a lot. They aren't the best selling in this market. They do okay. The jazz scene, though, is strong on that smaller level. I think if there was a jazz club, it'd be cool. But a lot of the bigger jazz shows do okay.
I'm going to point to Jazz and Rib Fest that happens every summer in July, I believe. That's an awesome, I'm trying to find him. Anyways, that's an awesome, that's an awesome event that I think is very well attended. As an attendee and performer, there's always been long lines for ribs and a lot of crowds at the jazz stages, and I know a lot of the acts that get brought in are just phenomenal and you know, internationally and nationally recognized. I feel what you're saying, though, as far as jazz goes. I know that as someone who really enjoys jazz, it would be nice if there were some sort of intimate club where you can listen to jazz. I would suggest checking out the Blue Note, which is in Bexley, I believe, and also the Light of the Seven Matchsticks, which is in the basement of Natalie's. Small on Sundays, they have a group called the Pocketbooks that play, and it's a 3-piece group, and it's jazz, and it's fantastic. I think that in order to build that scene, though, I mean, you just have to do it and kind of find where the people are going. And it could be an instance where maybe the shows are happening. I'm not sure exactly where you're having your shows, but it could be an instance where the shows just aren't reaching the people where they are. And sometimes you just have to maybe go where the people are to find that type of response that you're looking for. But I do think there's support, for sure.
If I may add, I'll step out of my moderator role for a minute into my Jazz Sunday co-host role. There is also the mansion where Bobby Floyd plays from time to time. You're right. Central Ohio would benefit from a major jazz club. Being a jazz historian, they had the major chord with the late Jerry Hammond, he could bring top-notch acts in back in the late 80s and early 90s. A thing that can be done, Michael, is to tap into these fantastic jazz programs and jazz education programs we have in our universities around town. Capital University, Ohio State, Otterbein, Ohio Wesleyan, they all have jazz programs. And these young people who are in these jazz programs, jazz has kind of like moved to sort of almost a high art. So it's not going to have the same type of popular appeal as it had back when Jimmy McShane and company it was just dance music where it was very popular. It's kind of academic, so that's a natural, I think, breeding ground for that jazz audience you want. The universities just attended a Capital University jazz program at Capital University during the MLK holiday, and it was packed, and people were loving the 18 and 19-year-olds playing jazz. All right.
Well, I'll keep us in the university mindset for a moment. My name's Rachel Skaggs, and I'm a professor of arts management at The Ohio State University. And so my question for you all, we're working to educate students to integrate arts and enterprise and to really forge career pathways and be able to manage their own careers and the careers of other artists. So I'd love to hear your kind of insights on how that fits into the music community more broadly within Columbus. You know, we have all these students coming in from all over the state and really all over the world. And so how can we plug them in an effective way?
Great question. I just met with President Drake and also the new Dean of the College of Arts and Sciences, I think it's Gretchen Ryder. And the winds of change are blowing because we need to have that kind of a program that's multidisciplinary, because in other cities, the Clive Davis School in Tisch in New York at NYU, the Martin Bandier School in Syracuse, Drexel in Philadelphia, Belmont, Vanderbilt, the Herb Alpert School now at UCLA, and the Irving Azoff-funded student-run incubator. These are magnets for enrollment because, again, they know there's a music business. And I've been in the music business my entire life, and we are infested with lawyers, accountants, creative people, marketing, merchandising, video people, art directors. So people come from all of these different disciplines. That one thing that most of them have in common is a love of music. So I'm hoping that we as a commission are going to have some impact and a continuing dialogue with OSU to kind of craft or sculpt the horizon of music and music business, and also let it extend to the community. Not to be insular, but where's that scholarship for that kid that can't afford tuition that has the potential? What are you going to do with the new district that's being built in the new venue? So anyway, it's on our radar.
And internships, possibly with Scott and people who are in the business.
Yep, we do 12 internships a quarter. We've done that forever. So it's a good way for kids to get involved, and it's in the marketing department. So.
There are also internships at Short North Stage where they allow you to be involved in anything from production to actual performance. And I know that a lot of people get a lot of stage management experience, the business of running a theater experience, which I had no idea how much was encompassed in that side of things. And so I would just to piggyback off what you were saying earlier is explore the theater world as well. There are tons of theaters here in the city where there are internship opportunities to learn and to build a skill set outside of, well, not outside of, that is relevant to what you're doing or what they're doing. That's not necessarily being in a band.
Okay, we have one last question.
Great, thank you. I'm Jane Scott, and I'm very proud of the fact that we have had live piano music to start the Columbus Metropolitan Club for probably most of the 17 years that I've been here, so we think that's important too. And that's partly thanks to GCAT too, so thanks Tom for helping sponsor that. My question is, occasionally we do have a need for musicians for other events, and I know there are a lot of people in this room that maybe host parties or have other events. Is there a single source or a best source, a directory where we could look for talent? I mean, obviously we're a nonprofit, we don't have a big budget to be able to pay a lot of money for talent, but on the other hand, we do love to have live music at our events. Can you guide me? I know I've worked with Paul sometimes on some events where it's been a little bigger, but just on the average event, maybe for fundraisers or even a dinner party at your home that you might like to have a couple students or someone that you could pay $50 or $100. Is there a source, is there a directory we should be looking at?
I know that GCAC has an extensive directory of performers, and so you can check their website out. And again, Class Acts Entertainment, they know got all sorts of bands and musicians. And also just look out for who you might like and just ask. A lot of musicians we're out there trying to make money and play. So, and it's really nice to do special things like fundraisers and parties at your homes and things like that. So I would say just ask and you can find what you're looking for, but also check out GCAC's directory and check out Class X.
And with that, Jane Scott appears to have had the last question of the afternoon.
I hope you found today's forum enlightening, entertaining, and informative. I have to give a plug. Shelley Lewis, the development director of the Harmony Project, is here, and that's another wonderful musical portion of Columbus. I have to say, I participate, and it is wonderful. Let's thank our sponsors, Greater Columbus Arts Council, WOSU Public Media, Puffin Foundation West, WCMH NBC4, and the Carol A. McGuire Legacy Forum. And of course, our speakers, Bruce Garfield, Scott Skynecker, Amber Nicole, and Jack Markbanks, and we thank all of you. We look forward to seeing you next week at CMC.